Hey everybody, Adam here with Hometown Acres. Welcome back. So today we're going to give you guys the scoop on the new mini excavator there behind us, how much we paid for it, how we found it, what it's actually worth, and the story behind it. But anyway, it's really windy out here today, so we're going to go ahead and hop up in the cab. All right, so the story behind the excavator is we've been quietly looking for one for probably about the last year. You know, I saw probably a year or two ago Mike Morgan with Outdoors of the Morgans get their Kubota KX057, and that kind of sparked my interest, just seeing all the things that he was able to do on his property with that machine. And then what really set it for me was when we got invited to go over to neighbor Doug's house for the first time. He had drugged down a bunch of logs out of his woods and had them all piled up there, and he contacted us through the YouTube channel and said, hey, if you're interested in some free firewood, bring your dump trailer over, we'll load them up. So we went over there, and he said, well, you're going to be the one loading the logs. So he let me get into his Bobcat E60 mini excavator, and he's got a thumb on it, grab all those logs, put them in the dump trailer. And ever since that day, I mean, I really started looking hard at mini excavators. Now, it was something that we kind of thought, oh, you know, 3 to 5 years we'll be looking at getting one. And really, I was only going to pull the trigger on one if it was just a deal that I couldn't pass up. And that's what we found here with this machine. So over the last year, I had been looking online, looking at new machines, different brands, doing some shopping. I was in the market for about a 6-ton machine. I wanted something that was relatively new, you know, a year or two, maybe 3 years old, with less than 1,000 hours on it. I didn't want something that was somebody else's headache that I was going to have to do work on before I could go out and use it. I wanted to be able to, you know, just hop in it, turn the key, and go. And this machine fits that description perfectly. It's a 2019, so it's like 2.5 years old. It has 600 hours on it, and it was just exactly what we were looking for. So the history of this machine that I've gathered so far is that it was a rental for about the first 300 hours of its life through Highway Equipment. And I've done some research on Highway Equipment on the internet, and it appears as though they do a really good job of maintaining their rental fleets. So I felt good about that. Normally, you know, a rental piece of equipment, you really want to make sure you look them over, because you don't know if the service department was greasing them as often as they should have or taking care of the regular maintenance. But I've heard Highway Equipment is pretty good at that. After that, the machine was sold to an individual who wanted to start his own excavating business. And unfortunately, it sounds like his excavating business failed after he put about 300 hours on the machine, and he had to go back to taking a desk job, a 9-to-5, and had to get rid of the excavating business and needed out from under the payment of this machine. So you guys know me, I'm not about to just jump into something without doing my research first, so I called a couple local Hyundai dealers around the area. I wanted to find out what this machine would run brand new. And with the hydraulic thumb, the hydraulic quick coupler, and a couple extra buckets, I found out that the price would be somewhere between $71,000 and $74,000, depending on if you're paying cash or financing the machine. So then I wanted to see how well these Hyundais hold their value. So I started doing some online research on machinerytrader.com. I wanted to see if I could find a similar machine, similar in age, similar in hours, and see what the selling price was there. So I actually found a 2018 Hyundai 60CR-9A, and so that was another year older than this model here. It had 1,400 hours, so that was 800 hours more than this machine here, and they were asking $63,000 for that. So I thought that was actually a pretty fair price. Not a great deal for the buyer, but I don't think that the seller was getting rich on that deal either. Now, our machine that we're sitting in here right now, I already told you it's a 2019 with 600 hours. This cost $55,000, which is why we jumped all over it. I'm estimating that we got this for probably $8,000 to $10,000 below fair market value. Now, why were we able to find such a good deal on this? Well, if you remember last summer, we had Madison Heavy Equipment come out here to help us fix our leaking pond dam. And they run a rental fleet of heavy equipment. They've got skid steers, bulldozers, mini excavators, they've got big excavators, and we got to be pretty friendly with John, the owner. And I told him while he was out here, I said, hey, we're looking for a 6-ton machine. Told him exactly what I was looking for, something relatively new, not a ton of hours. I'm just trying to avoid that new sticker price, right? And so throughout the last 6 months, I'd followed up with him a couple of times. Really wasn't anything out there. He had a couple of John Deere 60Gs that, you know, they were like 2013, 2014s. They had 1,500 hours on them, a little bit more used than what I was looking for. And then just so happened one day I called him and I said, hey John, have you heard anything? And he said, actually, I've got a lead on a machine right now, and it was this one here. And he said, I'm not sure how much the guy is wanting to get for it. but he said, I'll let you know. Well, you know, a couple days later called me and he said, hey, it was too good of a deal to pass up. He said, even if you don't want it, I'm going to buy it and either put it in my rental fleet or I'm going to turn around and sell it. But he said, if you're interested in it, I'd be happy to pass along a good deal to you. So, I mean, he still made money on this machine, but I definitely think he did us a favor here, because he really could have, based on today's markets, he could have jacked the price up on this and probably made a fortune off of this machine. But honestly, that's just the way that John is. If you've ever done business with John Madison and Madison Heavy Equipment, just an honest guy, not trying to get rich on every deal, just trying to make a living. For example, I called our local Hyundai dealer here before we bought this, again, doing my research, wanted to see what the shop rates were if I ever needed to have service done on this. And their service truck rate was $145 an hour. Their in-shop service rate was $135 an hour. John's rates, his service truck rate is $95 an hour. His in-shop rate is $85 an hour. So that just goes to show you, you know, if you're value shopping, if you're in northwestern Pennsylvania, northeast Ohio, southwest New York, something like that, I definitely recommend, if you're looking for a piece of equipment or rental, taking a look at Madison Heavy Equipment. Now, again, I'm not sponsored by them. The only thing I got was I gave them $55,000 for this machine and I got a t-shirt. That is the extent of my sponsorship. Now, another thing I wanted to mention is, as you guys know, we are getting ready to break ground on a new garage addition to our house. And that really put us in no position to be looking at mini excavators. I mean, all of our cash is going to be tied up with the new garage building. But I knew, like I said, this was $8,000 to $10,000 under fair market value. I was never going to see a machine this clean for that price ever again, especially with the way things just keep trending up and up. So really, you know, Mike talked about his Kubota being a hedge against inflation. It was kind of the same thing with this. And sometimes you just got to find a way to make it work. Now, I know a lot of people are going to say, why didn't you just rent a mini excavator whenever you need one, when you've got a project lined up? And the reason is because I don't like renting equipment if I don't have to. You know, you can't own every piece of equipment. There's times when renting is a necessary evil, but I don't like being on the clock. You know, when we went to go do the pond build last year, a lot of rental places are booked out 2 to 3 weeks, and you don't know what the weather's going to be like 2 to 3 weeks from now. So let's say you go rent a big Cat 312 to dig a pond, and 3 weeks later the forecast for that week is rain 4 out of 5 days. Well, you're paying for that rental and you're not being able to use it. So it's nice to have the piece of equipment here when you need it. You're not on the clock, you're not in a rush. For me, this kind of stuff is therapeutic. This is what I like to do in my free time. And when you've got that clock ticking in the back of your head with a rental, it just kind of takes some of the fun out of it. Plus, we've got a ton of projects here that we'll be able to use this for, and a lot of them aren't more than a half hour, you know, here, an hour there, 2 hours there, and it doesn't make sense to have a rental trucked in, dropped off for these, you know, little onesie-twosie projects. A perfect example of that is I've got a 4,500 pound white oak log that I need to get on the sawmill, and my tractor is not going to budge that. So my options were, you know, to go rent either a skid steer or a big mini excavator to get that log on the sawmill, which will probably only take me, you know, maybe an hour to mill up. And so now I've got an 8-hour rental for something that only took an hour. It just doesn't seem like a good use of time or money. The other option would be just to not mill that log and let it go to waste, which would be a shame, because that log is probably very valuable once you get it milled into 2-inch thick live edge slabs, or, you know, dimensional lumber or beams or something. So I definitely didn't want to go that route. The third option would have been to ask neighbor Doug to drive his skid steer 2 miles through the woods to get over here, and I really didn't want to do that either. So I'm not trying to justify my purchase to any of you guys. I know I don't need to do that. I was just trying to give you guys an idea of why we bought it, what we'll be using it for, because people in the comments genuinely ask, you know, not in a mean way or anything, but what are you going to be doing with that? Do you really have that much digging that justifies purchasing that machine? And the answer is no. I didn't buy this machine to go out and do a whole lot of digging. I'm not going to be starting an excavating business or anything like that. I'm primarily going to be using this with the sawmill, firewood processing, maintaining our trails back through the woods, keeping our woods cleaned up. I'd really like to get a forestry head mulcher for this to go back there and kind of clean out all the underbrush and everything. But, you know, we're cutting trees down all the time to bring out and put on the sawmill, and you leave the treetops back there. It'll be nice to be able to pull the logs out closer to the trail with this machine, and then I can bring my tow arch or the tractor with the grapple and actually carry the logs out of the woods. but then cleaning up the treetops, be able to reach back in there, grab the treetops, pile them up into a brush pile, and then I can either leave them there for the critters or I can burn them. Also, as part of the new garage build, this entire fence that you see here behind me is going to have to come out. It's going to be in the way of the new garage, and also the new driveway that's going to be riding up into the new garage. So we'll be able to use this to pull all those fence posts out. We'll be able to reuse those fence posts because we shouldn't destroy them pulling them out. Since we've got an excavator, we can just pull them straight up out. So the projects are just going to be endless with this machine, just to give you guys a glimpse of some of the things we'll be using it for, which means you guys will be seeing a lot more of this mini excavator in future videos. Anyway, that's the scoop for today on the mini excavator. If you guys enjoyed this one, give me a big thumbs up, click that subscribe button, and we'll catch you on the next one. Thanks for watching.